This research overview was prepared by Claude, an executive summary so I can quickly answer my question, a full scope with links to all of the sources, and source analysis so I know when I'm looking at the blog post and when I'm looking at the research paper. To get all of that, I only ask, let's scope a research. The reason it works like that and works like that every time is a skill. If you want to make it work for you, you need to understand one thing. The description, the wake-up signal, is the most important part of the skill. Every time when you are in the conversation, Claude reads all of the skills descriptions and decide, should I stay or should I go? If your description is wrong, Claude gonna overfire or not fire a skill at all. And that's gonna cost you money and time. Let's build one together, and I'm gonna share all of my decisions which I made along the way, so you can use this as a reference point. To start building a skill, make sure that your skill creator is on. Let's go to Customize, Skills, Skill Creator. Make sure that this one is on. Now we can just start building a skill. I use a whisper flow to dictate all of my commands. Hey, I would like to build a skill. Claude is just pulling up the right skill, and now we're gonna start the process. The process of building skill is super easy. Claude just gonna ask you several questions, what exactly you want to build and what is your outcome, and in this way, the skill will be created. The first question from Claude is about what I would like to build. And he is asking me, do I already know or do I want to brainstorm? And that brings us to the first step of building a skill. Building a skill involves 4 steps. Knowing your workflow, defining a skill, building it in the creator, and testing and evaluating. We are at the step number 1. The first step of building a good skill is choosing the correct workflow. You need to think about something what you're doing often, when you need to re-explain yourself to Claude every time, and when you're wasting your time by doing this. The relationship which you want to build here is you bringing the way how you want to work, and Claude is going to execute this. After that, we're gonna define the skill. There are 3 separate phases which you need to have in mind. What is your input? Which phrase you're gonna use to start the skill? What is the process which you want Claude to execute? And the last one, what is the output which you expect? Then Claude gonna just build the skill for you, and then we're gonna start evaluating and testing it. Let's focus on the first step. So in this case, we have a clear ID. Claude is asking me, what is my skill, when it's supposed to trigger, what is the purpose of that, what is the output, what are the examples. What I'm gonna do next, I just gonna ventilate everything what I have in my mind and try to be as precise as I can about the workflow which I always follow. Okay, so I would like to build a research skill. I just finished dictating everything what I want to achieve. As you see, it's quite long. Let's see how Claude gonna turn this around and what further questions will be there. Scoring some points for a well-defined workflow. I'm just going to carefully read all of the feedback from Claude and answer all of the questions as precise as I can. The conversation is just going. Claude is asking me questions. I'm trying to answer as precise as I can to provide exactly the workflow and the outcome which I want to have. The goal of that is that next time when I'm gonna ask to kick out the skill, I don't need to go through all of that process again, and Claude and the skill know exactly what is my preferred workflow and what is my preferred outcome. While Claude is preparing my skill, let's go through the process. So we close the phase number 1. We already know what we want to achieve. We just went through this step. We define what should be the trigger, what the process should look like, and what is my dream outcome. Right now, Claude is building a skill. I also want to focus a little bit on that part. I always try to think about my work in terms of the workflows and processes. When I do research, I always start with the scope of the research and how I usually start the research. I always saying something like, let's scope a research. Next one is the process itself. Scoping, source strategy, scope assessment, and execution. And the third one is output. In my case, I always want to get back a Google Doc with 3 sections: summary, research synthesis, and source analysis. Let's go back to Claude and see what he cooked. So the skill is drafted. There are 4 separate steps of this process: scoping, source strategy, context window planning, and research and output. This looks good so far. Okay, this is excellent. Claude is coming up with some test scenarios. A narrow one, which gonna happen in one conversation. A broad, which gonna involve multi-conversation research. And the technical one. So 2 words why I care about splitting a research in multiple conversations. One conversation window has defined context window max. If you're gonna exceed this context window, the results will be degrading. When you're doing a broad research, let's say you're researching multiple supplements and how they affect each supplement itself can easily max out the context window. You just want to make sure that you're gonna split a research into smaller pieces which gonna fit inside of the one conversation. When each stage is completed, the last conversation just gonna bring all of the research together and create one report. Test cases suggested by Claude feels good. Let's go with this suggestion. Another round, another feedback from Claude, and this one is really interesting and important. What Claude is trying to tell me right now is that there is lack of explicit guidance how many search queries per run it's supposed to execute and how deep supposed to be the search. And that's perfectly bring us to another topic, how to create a good skill. One of the reasons that you're creating a skill is to speed up your work and decide which part of the workflow is supposed to be in your control and which part of the workflow is supposed to be executed independently. Every workflow is different and this boundary will be moving from left to right. In our case, we're gonna take the following approach. We will be responsible for direction, for the parameters, and for the approval. Claude will be responsible for approach, scope management, quality control, and the output. In this way, I don't need to take all of this decision every time when I will be asking Claude to fire a research skill. So now I'm gonna provide the feedback to Claude how he's supposed to treat these topics. This is the part which is supposed to be under Claude judgment, especially the amount of queries which he's supposed to look for. Right now we are on the last step. Claude is taking all of our feedback which we provide and packaging this into a skill. The last part which belongs to us is to save a skill and test it. Claude finished building our skill and package it into the folder. Before we're gonna test it, let's break down what exactly happened here. This is our folder with two parts, the description and the body of the skill. The description, the wake up signal, is always loaded to the conversation. Every time we're sending our message, Claude reads all of the skills descriptions and validates if the situations match the description. If there is a match, Claude is going to the next step and start executing a work according to the process which it just described. And this is happening here. The linked files, references, scripts, and assets, that's something what we don't have built in yet. Okay, let's save and test our skill. I would like to scope a research. Our skill is loaded. Claude is now preparing to execute our workflow. So far, so good. Claude is asking me first, what exactly do I want to research? And suggesting me that we can brainstorm on that before we're gonna kick this out. In this case, I want to research a topic, sleep quality. That's working exactly as I like to. Vague question. I don't have a full scope in my mind, and now Claude is questioning me and suggesting me wider angle so I can make sure that my research will be successful and I'm gonna get the answer which I really expect. Claude decides that this topic is wide enough to split it in 4 separate conversations, 3 responsible for research itself and 4 responsible for the synthesis. Phase 1, 2, and 3 are completed. I'm going to download all of the documents. My conversation starter is ready. I'm going to attach all of the previous resources. Okay, this is our document. Let's see if the format is exactly as we designed. First part, executive summary, 3 paragraphs. That's supposed to answer my initial question. Then we have our full research. And the last one, source quality analysis, tier 1 to tier 3. Our skill is created. We invest a lot of time up front, but now every time when we want to kick out the research, everything will be handled by Claude. Here are the steps which bring us from 0 to 1. We know our workflow, we define our skill, we use the skill creator, and we test it and evaluate it. If you want to know more about technical aspect of building a good skill and what are the 11 rules that Anthropic suggests to follow, I break them down in my previous video. The link is on the screen. Thank you for watching.